Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 25th, 2021 weekly DXdao Community Call, and happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating. I'm your host today, Keenan. We've got some very interesting topics, including the alpha launch of DXDAO's brand new product, Carrot. We'll also be chatting with the XDAO ecosystem DAO and an update on the Buyback. Like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't seen yet, highly suggest taking a look at the Carrot announcement. I dropped a link in the chat. To kick us off today, we'll be starting with an update from the DXGov squad surrounding its recent happenings and changes to DX Vote. Rossi, good to go?
Just generally, what were you? Was this more of an update on like stuff, like version updates, or
Just very general update. Anything you'd like to chat about?
cool? Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of like potential paths to talk about things with DXGov. Obviously, we've still been pushing ahead with like DX Vote developments. Quite a few like big things we've done that aren't super visible, but will help us a lot just in the long term. So we've just gotten through our first phase of refactoring. So as we sort of scale the team, and speaking of scaling the team, we've scaled up quite a bit even just this week. We've got one new person joining us, Tiago, as well as potentially one or two other people. And so yeah, it's kind of important that we continue like maintaining the code and making it easier for people to jump into. Alongside that, other non-visible stuff is we sort of improved the process for updating the cache, so it's now a lot easier for us to hash our builds. And so in theory, that should mean end user sees faster loading times on DXVote, which is always exciting. So yeah, on the more visible side, yesterday we did a live demo of Chris Powers making his contributor proposal via the new UI. So that's quite exciting because it's the first time we're using the new wallet schemes that Augusto has made and architected. It's essentially like our own take on the DAO stack architecture. That's the first time we're using that for kind of actual funds moving around beyond the swapper governance stuff that's been going on in Arbitrum. And so that's quite exciting. It's one of the very small steps, but one small step on the path to governance 2.0. And yeah, other than that, we've mostly this week been focusing on guilds. So you might have heard quite a lot of exciting stuff about guilds with Augur. For those of you that haven't, maybe someone can post a link to that. But Augur announced a partnership with us. And so aiming more towards the governance 2.0 side of things, but in the meantime, they're going to be launching on guilds, which is our ERC20 governance platform. And so we've kind of been pushing full steam ahead with that. The use case beyond Augur, of course, is for Swapper, is the main use case there. So quite a lot of exciting things coming there as well. We had a few conversations about that with the Swapper team just this week, or a bit of last week as well. And so yeah, I think we have a pretty solid plan there as well. I don't know if Augusto wants to say anything to that. He's been, I think he's just emerged from his, as Dave quite eloquently said, coding cave. Recently, he's been heads down on getting guilds working and ready for audit.
Hola, yes, Augusto from my cave. Actually, I'm started moving out from the cave. I submitted a pull request to our repository about the Augur gear implementation. So very excited about that because yeah, like Ross said, this is like the first step towards them. They are going to audit the ERC20 gears smart contracts, and then we are going to start using gears even internally. I think this is something else that I'm pushing to replace all our multi-signature operations with the gears. So I'm trying to use the gears also as an internal tool for DXdao and as something that other projects can join and deploy and start using it as a first step towards governance 2.0. This is something that I call it governance 1.0, where you can deploy the gear, and then we are going to provide all the tools where you can start using our stack. So a lot of work there. I'm very excited to submit everything for audit, and then we are going to be ready to start using it on production.
Yeah, so hopefully soon you'll be seeing some more demos. The designs done by Geronimo are looking quite exciting as well, so it should be quite a visually pleasing demo when we get around to it. So yeah, quite a lot to look forward to there. I think as well, if you're interested, I can't remember quite when it went live, but there was a discussion that John, Chris, and Augusto had with Chris Black on his podcast, where they talked about governance and sort of current goings on in the governance space. So if you're interested and you can't wait for Guilds and Governance 2.0 to launch, you can go and listen to that podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Exciting stuff, and really great to see Augusto out of the cave here. I did have one question left with me, which you did somewhat answer, but maybe some clarity would be good. The question is Augur using DX Vote? What exactly is happening there? You did say it is the guilds, of course, but maybe some explanation of the differentiation between guilds, DX Vote, what the kind of framework is like.
Yeah, certainly. So DX Vote currently is kind of in this weird stage where we're in like an evolutionary step between the old DAO stack stuff and our new architectures. The stuff I was just mentioning about us using the new schemes is us taking those sort of evolutionary steps in DX Vote. But for Augur, they're kind of going down a different path. Obviously, they're not on the existing architecture we're on, and so technically the guilds are being built inside of DX Vote, but they're very much not using the same architecture. So from the user perspective, they're going to be using DX Vote and our products, but it will very much be guilds, and they're a whole different set of smart contracts and different way of working.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any final comments from you two here before we move on?
No, good from my side.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ross and Augusto. Let's move on here. The next topic on the agenda, we're going to have a comprehensive buyback update. We have Dave here, who's been working on the buyback spreadsheets, also putting through most of the buyback orders. Dave, great to have you. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Quick question. Am I able to share my screen here or not in this?
I don't believe so. Stages are quite weird.
Okay, then let me just share the link to the sheet so everyone knows what I'm talking about in the mothership text. So for those of you who have been following a bit along the buyback sheet, you'll see there have been some changes happening there. So we've kind of like made it a bit more easy to maintain, given that we had some issues previously keeping it up to date. So now we actually just pull data directly on chain. We still have to manually upload it, unfortunately, given that Google API is really painful to use. You have to like set up 1,000 parameters, state what your API is going to be used for, etc. So there's still some manual labor involved, but hopefully we'll get around automating that as well. And other than that, if you've been following along, you might have seen a little bump in the amount of DXD bought. And that is actually due to a change in methodology. So in the previous iteration, the way that was used to calculate the amount of DXD bought was actually just calculating the total amount of DXD purchased and multiplying that by the current price of DXD, which, particularly given that DXD has almost tripled in this past year alone, was not very reliable. So now we actually use the price of the day the order was actually placed. So that should give a much more correct overview of how much DXD we bought back. And due to that change in methodology, we're already also quickly approaching the next 1 million extension. And overall, where we stand right now, we've bought back 7,229 DXD total. The majority of that has come from XDAI, given that we're currently only doing buybacks on XDAI. And if you take a look at the circulating supply on CoinGecko, it says that it's just shy of 50,000. And if you deduct the amount we've bought back, we've actually purchased almost 15% of DXD back from the circulating supply, which gives an actual circulating supply of around 42,500 DXD remaining. And this is actually not reflected well on CoinGecko, given that these buybacks have mostly been happening on XDAI, and CoinGecko actually only tracks mainnet. And we also haven't withdrawn the 2000 DXD, I believe, on the mainnet GPV1 relayer. So those are actually also not included in CoinGecko. But that's something we actually have to do. And then I don't know how to get CoinGecko to pull that correctly, but that's another topic. But yeah, that's pretty much it from this side. We're trying to run daily buybacks now. We had somewhat of a delay due to a variety of issues, including EIP 1559 activation on XDAI, which broke all Trezor wallets. We had a new approach as well now to the buybacks. So if you have been following the on-chain proposals, rather than seeing 2 proposals per buyback, one sending the funds and the latter posting the order, you'll see that now we're actually only posting orders due to the fact that when we bridge Ether from mainnet to XDAI now, or at least this is how we've done it the last time, is we deposit this Ether or WETH once it's on XDAI directly into the GP relayer. So that means we just have to execute multi-calls from the XDAI base, and that kind of, simplifies a lot the process, and it also removes the amount of funding proposals on the XDAI base, which previously were also the scheme used for worker proposals. So, if you currently have a lot of worker proposals, maybe some sponsorship or under proposals that generally fall under that scheme, having to do 2 proposals also complicates it a lot in terms of needing a lot more gen to stake on the proposals, which can also delay them. And so kind of just, simplified a bit the process and making sure we're able to, consistently move forward with that. And that's pretty much the update from my side.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dave. Great to see that the sheet is now automated, at least mostly automated. And I love the numbers in here, particularly the percentage of circulating supply reduction, current circulating supply, etc. I have one question left with me. It's what's next and how many buybacks will there be? I'm not sure if you have an answer to that.
Yeah, so I believe currently we have another 500,000 of buybacks to do under the current extension of the DXD buyback proposal. And we would probably then see another buyback extension. Then, of course, it depends on chain whether it gets approved or not. But also, Chris has been doing most of the extension and kind of methodology behind the buyback. I believe there is some intention of using roughly for now 2,500 Ether, which is the amount which currently sits in the DXD token in Ether, right? Which was in the bonding curve back in the day. And given that we only sold, so to speak, 1,100 Ether so far, I think there's still a way to go with the buyback. So, but ultimately, yeah, it'll depend on on-chain proposals. But I guess that's my general sentiment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dave. Any final questions here? Not seeing any. Just some comments in chat about updating on CoinGecko and needing to bridge between XDAI mainnet for anyone listening along at home. Cool. Let's move on to the next topic here. And it's the XDAI ecosystem DAO, particularly what it is and what the status of it is. Sky has been leading this effort recently. Sky, if you want to give some context.
Yeah, so for those that have been following along, there's discussion about a proposed merger between XDAI and GNO, and basically creating a Gnosis beacon chain and having XDAI chain merge into that. And there's obviously some specifics around that in terms of stake token being acquired or merged into GNO token. But there's a pretty lively discussion in the DXdao community around this situation, and there's a bunch of variables like the price at which the token merger happens, and what's going to happen to the current projects that are building on DXdao and using stake incentives, and will those turn into GNO incentives, and what will happen to current programs. And so there's quite a few unknowns, and the basically the current XDAI community who has been building on XDAI for like the last couple of years, probably DXdao being one of those. But there's a whole list of projects that have been committed and building interesting things on XDAI. Basically kind of joined together as initially as a working group, basically to figure out how to make sure that the projects that have been building on XDAI and are committed to XDAI will continue to get the support needed in order to grow the overall ecosystem once any kind of merger happens. And so there's a lot of technical things, but in general, the idea was to come together to form a group, or hopefully soon an actual working DAO that could represent this current community. And one of the reasons why there was a need to move quickly is because there is going to be upcoming snapshot proposals around this merger, and one idea was to have some kind of commitment in that actual proposal in order to allocate some of the proposed GNO total rewards that are going to be going to this new ecosystem, having some of those allocated directly to the existing projects that are already part of the XDAI ecosystem. And so there were some meetings this week. A temporary multi-sig made up of a handful of the community members was put together. That now becomes a place where that could be included in any future proposal of GNO rewards. And that would be, the idea would that be a transition mechanism that would then basically lead into some type of governance system or platform or DAO that could actually allocate these rewards to the projects that should benefit from it. And so this is all coming together. There's still some open questions. I think Gnosis team in general and GNO community are interested in this idea. They've asked some follow-up questions in terms of, how can we, make sure that projects that are currently building on XDAI ecosystem are like going to commit to also continue to build on the new chain, like of Gnosis chain, and not just like disappear and migrate to some other chains. And I think what we've seen so far is most projects, I think the answer really, it's a pretty interesting question, because the answer is almost all projects, including Gnosis, including DXdao, including the XDAI core team, including most of the projects running on XDAI, except for a few of them, are basically committed to a multi-chain world. Now, XDAI has been, and it continues to be, and will likely be an important part of that multi-chain world experience. And so projects are definitely committed to, like, there's a reason why we do most of DXDAO's governance on XDAI, and we're, just launched Carrot on XDAI, and we have all of our products on XDAI, is because it is a great experience and great ground for DAOs and things when we need to scale outside of mainnet Ethereum. And so that's all kind of the surrounding situation that is ongoing. It's a little unclear how quickly and how fast the proposals related to this entire situation will move. But this working group, which is currently has a multi-sig, but needs to have a plan to eventually probably have a DAO to figure out how to manage these incentives and things, that's all happening kind of live. And so anyone that wants to join that group, feel free to come into, there's a Discord that's established specifically for the XDAI ecosystem working group. We actually need probably a new name for what this like ecosystem DAO would be. So feel free to propose that also in the Discord. But yeah, that's the kind of overall situation. I don't know if anyone had any other comments to add to that.
No, I think that's a really good recap of everything that's going on. I do have one question here, and it's how much GNO is the DAO getting? I think you kind of addressed this, but
Yeah, so there was a rough idea of like, let's say it was 400,000 GNO that like Gnosis has kind of said, oh, initially this is the amount of rewards we would give to or towards incentives on this new ecosystem Gnosis chain. And so the current ask, which is not like a formal ask, was something around 20% of that would be kind of allocated and dedicated and maybe given to this DAO to use to help the current projects that are already in the XDAO ecosystem basically get established, get their rewards continued. A lot of projects have only been testing rewards so far, are about to ask for rewards. And so this was all ongoing in the XDAO ecosystem, and the stake incentive fund was set up for this specific reason. And so if that thing disappears or changes into a GNO like incentive fund and support fund, the idea is to like make sure there's at least as much to basically get all of these projects on board and continuing with their progress and bringing on users and having the right incentives there. And so that doesn't mean that is like the only incentives these projects can ever have. It's just like something to basically use and be confident in the during the transition period. And I think Gnosis, like, well, Martin Koppelman, this is not Gnosis or GNO in general. This is like some people's personal opinions, but he already kind of implied that it makes a lot of sense to take this total amount of rewards and allocate it to a bunch of different DAOs with a bunch of different missions in this new ecosystem, because it's not going to be like on-chain proposal to all GNO holders every time there might want to be like a reward incentive allocated to a certain project. So there's going to have to be delegation and like splitting up of like how this whole ecosystem will work. So this proposed DAO is actually a really interesting way to fit into that system already by taking the projects that are already and have been dedicated to XDAI network and giving them like a certain amount of GNO rewards to manage themselves. But initially, like the ask that we're currently talking about is about 20% of the total, which is about 80,000 GNO, which is I don't know how many dollars that is, but.
excellent. Thank you, Sky. Any other questions here? As always, feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat. Otherwise, we can move on and expect to hear more about that. I believe, Sky, am I right that the proposal they want to submit is like within a week? They said 8 days, no?
I don't know when it's going to last for a week, but I don't know when it's actually going to become a proposal. And there's also like the snapshot proposal, but then there's also like the beacon chain can launch and like a contract to swap stake to GNO could at a certain rate could go live at any time. So there's like a whole bunch of different layers to this. And it's weird because like blockchain, mergers, like these things have happened in the past with a bunch of different projects, but it's not very common and they're all kind of different. And sometimes there's forks and things that happen. And so the with all these moving parts, I don't think anyone actually understands exactly how this whole thing will work, that it will be more fluid, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's not important to really outlining clearly, like show signal via whatever proposals these are, whether they're snapshot or community voice or whatever, to basically show, to establish important signal on how this will and like what's important in the space and how it could proceed. But yeah, so I don't have like the exact dates, and I don't know, and there's lots of moving parts. So it's kind of fluid and being established as we move forward over the next couple weeks, probably.
Cool. Thank you, Sky. Yeah, spicy soup. We'll cover that at the end if that's okay. Just a comment on the buyback. Let's move on here to the most exciting part of the presentation, carrot. What is a carrot? We do have a couple of contributors here familiar with the product, inviting Venki to the stage here, as well as Federico and Sky, who are already on. So guys, what is carrot?
I'm happy to start and give a kind of high level perspective. And I forgot to say, for those that like to celebrate U.S. holidays, today is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving. And as we all know, carrots are one of the most important staples of the Thanksgiving meal. So it's really cool to launch carrot, the alpha version of carrot, on Thanksgiving. And it actually goes well in spaghetti and pasta if you're in Italy as well. So, yeah, carrot, like the idea of carrot goes back actually quite a while, probably even before anything like KPI tokens existed. DXdao has a lot of experience with like conditional tokens, right? And it actually uses conditional tokens in the Omen system. And so there's always been ways to use prediction markets for like driving incentives. And so we've always talked about how we could leverage the idea of like using smarter conditions to basically drive behavior and incentives in ecosystems and token economics that we're dealing with. And so now you see already in the space like farming 2.0, like doing smarter farming, or DeFi 2.0, which is smarter DeFi, is becoming quite a popular thing. And DXdao had this idea for carrot, which you know, Federico has done an amazing job with, where this kind of creating a system that's very easy to use, that's very flexible and very broad, and really you could use this platform to drive almost any incentive that you can measure. And so Carrot is this platform for managing these community driven, like basically programmable incentives. And so all you really need to be able to do is come up with a condition which can be settled by like on-chain oracle. And in this case, we use reality.eth, which is what we also use in Omen. And so as long as you come up with a condition for a behavior that you want to drive, you can use Carrot to simply lock up collateral of whatever token you want to be that collateral. And then you get Carrot tokens. And those Carrot tokens can be distributed to anyone in any stakeholders that you want to help incentivize or drive behavior of. And that can be through farming rewards. So for example, giving it out to LPs in a swapper pool. That could be airdropping it to people in certain communities that you think this would be important to. Or in theory, you could sell these Carrot tokens as well. And so there's different ways you can distribute these Carrot tokens. But the idea is that once someone has these Carrot tokens, they very clearly know what that condition and what that goal or KPI is attached to that Carrot token. You can go to carrot.eth and you can actually see if you have this Carrot token, it's related to this specific condition, and you now have a goal in order to drive that condition to happen. And these conditions can be binary, like we've seen with Omen, like yes or no, pass or fail, or they can be scalar, and scalar would be like on a range where in this example that has gone live, it's basically TVL, like what is a TVL of a certain pool, and there's a lower range and an upper range, and depending on where we end up in that range, the Carrot will pay out more or less depending on the performance of the condition, basically. And so really exciting. This is an alpha version of Carrot. It's live. It's current, like DXdao is dog fooding it for its own pools, for its own products right now, mainly Swapper and Swapper token. But this has been built and should be, initially available for other projects and other teams that we'll start to work with for their needs as well. But yeah, so that's the kind of overview of Carrot. And yeah, Federico and Venki, who have been obviously some of the main spearheaders of this. If you guys want to add anything, or if there's anything I missed, yeah, please go ahead. But great job.
Yeah, well, to be honest, nothing to add really. Amazing summary. So yeah, nothing to add on my end.
What were you talking about, pasta and carrots, Sky?
Yeah.
Have you guys never had carrot pasta? It's amazing.
What is carrot pasta?
It's what you eat on Thanksgiving carrot launch day.
That's cool then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So at the same time, I guess just to add a little more detail, the new epochs for Swapper have gone live this morning, an hour and a half ago about, and 2 of these farming epochs on XDAI, the first place we're experimenting with Carrot, include the ability for the farmers to earn Swapper token, but then also Carrot token in the same pools. And those Carrot tokens have 2 different conditions attached. And what's unique is that even though these epochs could run, for the next 2 weeks, the Carrot tokens, which you're earning, can have an incentive, a condition that could be anything in the world actually. And in this case, what it's looking at is like the average of the TVL for the certain pool over the month of December. And at any time, anyone who's farming these carrots can actually claim these carrots. These carrots could theoretically start trading in the market, may even have their own pools on Swapper. But these carrots that you hold, you can either help drive the behavior to happen and then get the full collateral, or theoretically you could trade these carrots as well, and maybe there's other people that want to come buy these carrots. And so it creates a really interesting ecosystem around incentive-based tokens. Obviously, people have probably seen things with like UMA and KPI tokens. There's only a few different projects that have experimented with it. I see Carrot, in the way that Federico and team have built it, to be like a way simpler version of what projects want to achieve, basically. And there's already been a handful of projects that have seen this announcement and are reaching out to basically say like, oh, I want to figure out what we can incentivize in our community, because we would like to experiment with this. And so they're really, it's really open and expansive. And as long as you can create a condition that can be clearly identified and settled, you can basically use the Carrot platform. So, and this is, just keep in mind, this is the alpha version. So if there's any things you see on the Carrot platform or with your Carrot tokens, just feel free to share those with the DXdao team in Discord or wherever. Always great to get feedback and opinions on if any problems come up or anything. Yeah.
Thanks, Sky. I'm going to go into the specifics of the 2 launch campaigns on XDAI, but first, Nathan has a comment about distinguishers of Carrots from other KPI platforms. I'm not sure if you wanted to kind of address that comment or not.
I mean, I can, Venki or Federico, if you guys have anything to say. So one of the cool things that I think is, so with UMA KPI tokens, like there's this entire UMA, 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 whatever you call it, kind of like token system, which I guess is like optimistic Oracle kind of thing, that really has to like be leveraged in order, and like has to be pretty sizable money and big leverage to leverage that for like settling these KPI options. With Carrot, we've borrowed a lot of the like things we've learned from Omen, where these Oracle of using reality.eth is really a very simple way for an open community to settle a condition on anything really, as long as it's clear and as long as it's measurable, and ideally it can't be gamed. So in this case, by using like averages of like December versus like the price of something on one specific date, or the TVL of something on one specific time and date, by using averages, it becomes a lot harder to try to game the outcome, and that's actually a really important part of these campaigns. So there's a skill to like establishing what conditions you want to measure, but yeah, it's I would say Carrot is very simple and easy and clear, and anyone can help settle those conditions for a market that they're interested in or that they're watching. And so that's like a really, I think, differentiating part of Carrot versus like some of these other ways to do KPI options or tokens, which are a lot more complicated, I think. And it's a much cooler brand too, like by a lot.
We like the carrots. Thank you again, Sky. Going to run through the two campaigns that are live on Swapper now as the first part of the alpha here. The first one is for the Swapper against XDAI pair on XDAI, of course. Over the next 4 weeks, 50% of the rewards are distributed in raw Swapper. 50% of the rewards are distributed in X Swapper price 12-to-1 tokens. These tokens are redeemable for the underlying Swapper, basically double the Swapper that's raw on the farming campaign in Swapper, provided that Swapper's closing price, or average price, I believe Scott just mentioned, is above 20 cents throughout the month of December. Additionally, there's a pool for the DXD pair on XDAI called XDXD with TVL 1221. Yeah, to be clear, carrot campaigns are on XDAI currently. So there's 16,800 Swapper distributed to the DXD pairs on XDAI over the next 4 weeks, and half of those are distributed as carrot campaign tokens, the XDXD with TVL tokens. And those are scalar resolution. Basically, will pay nothing below 800,000 US dollar TVL over the month of December, and will pay the maximum amount above 1.5 million US dollar TVL over the month of December. So basically, a great opportunity to kind of trial out both binary and scalar resolutions here. I'm not sure Venki or Sky maybe want to comment on the campaign specifically before we move on.
No, I think Sky explained it clearly. That's the first one. You will be able to claim the carrot tokens from Swapper, and then you will be able to see how many carrot tokens that you have in carrot.eth. And yeah, once we have figured out what the answer is from reality.eth, you will be able to claim equivalent amount of Swapper tokens from carrot.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Federico, Sky, and Venki for being here. I'm not sure if there's any closing comments before we move on. Cool. Well, you can farm carrot tokens now through Swapper on XDAI, the DXD, and Swapper pairs. Feel free to take a look around carrot.eth.link as well, which I will link again in the chat. You can take a look at the UI. Super exciting stuff. I believe tentatively we're planning on a formal AMA in the coming week. Nothing set in stone yet, but look forward to the community call next week as well. Perfect. And kind of to wrap things up here, I'm inviting, what do we have here? Inviting Zet to the stage here to chat Swapper Beta 8.1, which has carrot functionality, as well as a couple of other exciting things, if you want to take that away.
Let's see here. You guys hear me? Perfect. Yeah, so we actually have a pretty big update, and it's live, which is good because we had other updates not being live before. So even though this update, beta 8, which includes adding the first MVP of the bridge, we'll go through that. Unlocking the governance button, which now is named vote. The vote button was actually unlocked on beta 7, but it was never live. No one pushed a proposal for it, so it's actually not new for beta 8, but it's live now, so we could see this as beta 8. It's the first time you guys see it. We link the governance tab to snapshot for now until the guild is done. So we basically have a signal proposing through snapshot with swapper tokens until the guild is done. And when the guild is done, we'll have both LP token governance and swapper token governance, and slowly giving the total control to swapper token holders, basically the community. So this is super exciting. This is like the first step for governance on swapper. And yeah, you guys heard from the DXvote team. They're working hard on the guilds. We're one of the first to use it together with Augur. For the swapper bridge, we have the Arbitrum bridge integrated. It is only ETH for now, and we are currently testing ERC20 tokens and probably gonna release it for next version. But for now, it's ETH on Arbitrum and mainnet. You can also test both test nets, and so it is basically launched for use and also for testing. We're gonna have more bridges being launched on the same bridge. So maybe I can explain a little bit what I mean with that. So what we're doing with swapping, we'll do with bridging, basically collecting not one bridge, multiple bridges, also also aggregators of bridges, collecting them into one bridge, and we'll do like the lookup for you when you search, like, hey, which bridge has the best fee, or which bridge gives me the highest outcome on this token and this token. And we'll do some really interesting things. And we know this is like one of the bigger things going on now with multi-chain, and I think we are doing something really interesting here. And it's going to be super relevant for Swapper. So yeah, we're excited to launch the MVP. So yeah, try it out. It uses the Arbitrum native bridge. So bridging back to mainnet will take 7 days. So just know this. And we'll implement ERC20 tokens next, and after that we'll implement the Omni bridge, which is the DXdao bridge, onto this bridge. So yeah, those two things, and we have the carrot integration, of course. Keenan talked about them already. So we integrated some UI stuff for carrot, so you could see which campaigns have carrot campaigns and link directly to that campaign on carrot. So that's integrated. We also made it much like simpler with the campaigns. Now on upcoming and ongoing campaigns is under one and the same tab under campaigns. And no, we're not gonna hide the upcoming campaigns, so you'll be able to see when campaign is upcoming in the same tab. And yeah, that's about it. We are doing much more updates, much more updates to the farming tab and the pool tabs, and a bunch of new exciting things such as single token staking. So yeah, the next few versions are coming out. This is gonna be really, really great. And we have a big new landing page coming up really soon, so I'm super excited for that. So that's something we are pushing now. We just got the DXdao landing page up, and next up it's gonna be Swapper landing page. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Zet. Super, super exciting. I do have one question actually from me. You mentioned that the XDAI and OmniBridge are next up. What are the plans to integrate cross-chain liquidity bridging, such as like Xpollinate, Hop, etc.?
Yeah, that's so first we want to integrate the native bridges, and then start integrating like partner bridges, as we call them, and lastly we'll integrate aggregators. There is a few of them out there, but yeah, it's important to give the user the choices to choose between the native bridges first, and then having these partner bridges later. So yeah, we're gonna integrate Hop and others into the bridge.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll leave the door open here to any questions, but otherwise we can wrap up a little bit early today on this American holiday. Cool, not seeing anything in the chat. Well, thank you very much, Zet, and everyone else that came up to speak today. Any final questions, comments here in the chat? Otherwise, we'll end the call. Oh, right. So sorry. We do have one question/comment from Spicy Soup. I'll read out for those of you listening at home. On the buybacks, is there any chance we can agree on a formula for NAV and update every few weeks on the spreadsheet? I've been using ETH and stablecoins in the DAO Treasury plus ETH in the token contract divided by circulating supply. I'm not sure, Dave, if you're still here, if you want to maybe answer this as we end it here. See if he's around. Nice.
Good, absolutely, definitely something we can look into. As I said, most of the methodology behind the buyback was actually done by Chris, so I'll probably have a chat with him when he's back from Thanksgiving. And I mean, ultimately, not a difficult formula to come up with in the buyback. I'll just have a chat with him and think about methodology a bit. But yeah, totally doable.
Plus ENS, yeah, that's a big thing. DXdao has, what is it now, Dave? Like 2 million in ENS tokens. 3 million. Excellent, guys. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Eyes open for any final questions, comments here. Sorry again, Spicy Soup, for glossing over. Yeah, cool. We'll end her here. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We'll see you next week for the DXdao Weekly Community Call. Happy Thanksgiving, and make sure you attend next week. There may be a Carrot AMA and potentially. Thank you, everybody.